Hey everybody, today is November 30th, 2020, and this is Mike, and we are in story time. This should be hopefully a good talk. I got a couple things I want to cover. I'm going to begin with something that happened to me last week. It was last Tuesday, and I was in the house, and around 7 o'clock at night, there was a knock on the door. And when I opened the door, there was a young man there, and just wearing like it looked like he just came from working out. And he says to me, he's like, "Are you Michael Wan?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I am Trooper such and such, whatever his last name is." When the cops knock on your door, whether you got a outstanding warrant or not, you begin to question. But nonetheless, he says to me, he's like, "Hey, have you lost your phone?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't lost my phone." And then he pulls out a phone. He's like, "Is this your phone?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's my friggin' phone." He's like, I found it. And he said a road probably about a mile from my house. And I was like, "You found my phone?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Is this yours?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is mine." He's like, "Well, here's your phone back." And I'm like, whoa, wait. First, I'm all confused. I'm like, discombobulated, trying to figure out all this stuff, which is going on. 7 o'clock, dinner time, trying to balance all that sort of stuff. And the cops show up, and, I asked him, like, "Well, how did you go and how did you find this phone, and how are you able to trace it back to me and to this house?" And he goes and he tells me a story about like reverse lookup and stuff like that. And I was mostly elated, I was like, I don't want to lose my phone, to avoid even going through the process of having to, the worry of like, oh, did I lose my phone? What do I got to do now? Do I not have a phone? What, that sort of stuff. So I was happy. I invite him in. I introduce him to everyone. Real nice guy. And then he left. And as he left, I began to like deconstruct the story he told me. And I'm like, I don't think you use reverse lookup. I'm pretty certain reverse lookup does not work with with cell phone numbers. And I'm going through it, and I'm like, how did my phone get on that street anyway? And I thought about it, and probably what makes the most amount of sense is I was leaving work, and the road where he said he found it was definitely in between my house and the Woody Waste drop-off center where I work. And so I'm like, yeah, it's possible that I left the phone on the roof, and I drove a little bit and then it fell off. I guess maybe it's possible that that didn't happen. But this is where stories are important, because at this point you go and you fill in the gaps. I could become paranoid. I talk about some things, I suppose, which, I could probably be put on some lists, but I'm certain if such lists exist, I'm on such lists. And I let it go and haven't, thought anything of it besides the fact that I think it's kind of a funny story. And it was a really positive story as it relates to law enforcement. I like to think of myself, I've got good law enforcement karma. I've had every interaction I've ever had with the police. Primarily, that would just be traffic instances. It's always worked out for me in a way that I get let off with a warning. But nonetheless, stories are important because the stories we tell ourselves, the stories we accept to be true, the stories, the history which we accept, they becomes our point of reference for interpreting reality, and then, the choices we make and so forth, reinforces what these beliefs are. And one of the things which I think I like to do, or what I think I do well, is I deconstruct stories. You could take any story, any friggin' story in the world, and everything's a story. Everything's a story. And if you put enough pressure upon it, it's going to begin to break down, and you're going to break it down into pieces which probably can't be broken down any further. Some of them can be, but and I like to rearrange them, and I like to tell and put them in different patterns and find new elements to those stories. And by doing so, it literally changes reality. And, I mean that in like kind of like a psychological way, when we begin to go and see things from a different light. Our psychology changes, and then the way we meet the world changes, and all that sort of stuff. But there's also, a little bit more of a magical, a mystical and unexplainable element of how the stories, not just the stories we believe, but more importantly, the stories we identify with, that becomes our reality. And, that's the stuff which I find most exciting and most interesting to play with. And so I want to talk about stories. So where I want to begin right now is, let's go here. So probably a lot of you are familiar with this document here. Maybe you've heard something of it. It's called the public's role in COVID-19 vaccination, planning recommendations informed by design thinking and the social, behavioral, and communication sciences. And so this is a report which is associated with the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, Texas State's Department of Anthropology. I don't really understand where that connects in, but this document, it came out July 2020. That's getting a lot of traction. And what has been primarily said about this is this coming highly organized and integrated series of stories to encourage the greatest amount of acceptance with the coming medicine. And I want to point this out. A lot of people have brought this up to the attention. These are the people who are involved with this this paper. I guess there's probably I don't know, maybe a conference, and this is the report, is the conclusions of this conference. And this person right here, Luciana Borio, who's a vice president of In-q-Tel, I believe she is also listed as one of Biden's COVID task force members. And this gentleman right here, Joseph Buccina, he's another member of In-q-Tel. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with In-q-Tel, In-q-Tel is the venture capitalist arm of the CIA. And so I'm going to go down this rabbit hole just a little bit before circling back to my point of all this, but I found this interesting. So I was looking into these people, and I did a search on it, and you come up to this website right here, and it is bNEXT.org, IQT bNEXT. You could see that right here. This is on the home page. The digital revolution changed the world. The bio revolution will transform it. Whenever you see friggin' slogans, this is, and particularly when done this way, slogans, the reason why slogans are so important is because they work. It's the little ear candy song that gets in your head that you can't it sticks. A good slogan is going to stick, and it's going to become part of your inner story, and you're going to begin to accept this reality. And so let me just read this about us since 2015. bNEXT, remember bNEXT is In-q-Tel, has focused on stimulating the defense. What the hell does that even mean? Stimulating the defense against infectious disease epidemics by demonstrating the power of new and emerging technologies to rapidly detect and quench outbreaks. Quench outbreaks. What? Our work supports In-q-Tel's mission of accelerating the development and delivery of cutting-edge technologies. So this is like, why the CIA gets into venture capitalism. So they go and they invest in cutting edge technologies which, there's 1,000 reasons for why this is beneficial. This is 2.0 MK Ultra sort of thing. But nonetheless, our work supports In-q-Tel's mission of accelerating the development and delivery of cutting-edge technologies to U.S. intelligence and defense agencies that keep our nation safe. Our work supports the accelerating and development of cutting-edge technologies. So, like, what does this have to do with stimulating the defense against infectious diseases? I mean, I guess you could go and say like protection against bioterrorism, but that seems to be a bit of a stretch. I mean, I don't know, but you answer that question yourself. But nonetheless, we see this connection. Here from the About Us page. These are the two people who we see who are involved with this particular forum. And, it makes sense. Like, this is the same sort of world. They're all interested in the same sort of thing. But the reason why this is so important is like probably, or one of the areas which intelligence is so significant is within propaganda, within creating the stories in people's minds so that they can accept and also participate in a particular story and a particular narrative which is coming. And so, I'm sharing this just to indicate that, this is coming. There's going to be a very, very highly organized and multi-tiered from many, many different levels of like the same story told over and over and over again to the unsuspecting public of, why they need the medicine. And so be aware. This is how the game works. This is stories. This is where the stories, where it goes from like, news stories to like, how this becomes reality. Right here we can see, I don't know if anyone has seen anything with this. This is, pause, take care before you share. It's a new campaign from the United Nations. And we see, this is from that website, for all its benefits, social media has become a vehicle for misinformation. Stories are skewed, quotes are misremembered, facts are twisted. Misinformation is disrupting our society, our economy, and our health. With the current pandemic, it can be even more deadly. Misinformation is also making it harder to tackle the world's most pressing issues. The climate emergency, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the struggle for racial justice. All three of these are intimately, it's the same story. To find a solution, we need to work together. And like, this is where it's going to be coming from. It's coming from this level of management within, within the regular world. What's interesting. So these are like kind of the talking points which this pause campaign is saying, before you share something, who made it? What is the source? Where did it come from? Why are you sharing this? When was it published? I mean, these are the sort of questions you really should be asking, and specifically if it's coming from, from a place like this. So the reason why I think this is interesting, because I want to point out, like, because we're talking stories here, and we're going to talk about, like, how stories become reality. And so this is one element. We're going to see this story, and it's going to be told over and over again. It's going to be told in the same constant message. At the same time, if this is the sort of stuff which you're interested in, you're following, there's another part of the story about how like anything which is going to go against the narrative which is going to be pushed forward is going to be censored. It's going to be locked down. That message is going to be drowned out, and this message is going to be very, very loud. And you hear a story enough times, you're going to begin to go, and it's going to become reality. It's going to become reality. And so that's one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is, this goes without needing to show you an article, but I'm going to do it nonetheless. Here's a story I saw, dated from a couple days ago. Americans are in delusional psychosis and policing each other, psychiatrist warns. And the story is all about this guy who's in the mental health industry is describing on a collective level. And that's what these propaganda programs are about. They are applying individual psychology, individual mind control on a group mind level. And and what this guy's doing is he's diagnosing the group mind, and he's saying that it's in this delusional psychosis. Like, people are not in their right mental space because they have been consistently and constantly hearing the message over and over, and the typical person is they find it hard to believe that someone that they trust is going to go and tell a lie. With the old adage is, you tell a lie big enough, everyone buys it, or something like that. I forget the exact words of that, but you know what I'm talking about. You got to tell them a big lie, because most human beings are incapable of telling big lies, and they assume that is true for all human beings. So it's just not within their realm of possibilities that there could be a great big lie being propagated. And so anyway, so there is this constant story, and like all of this worry, and this like speed up and slow down, and like, it's okay to be outside protesting, but don't have don't have meals with your family and all of that. And we go into so many different ways of talking about what we know is going on right now. But this is what's happening. If you're familiar with any of the techniques which, techniques which are used within prisoners of war, in ways of making people crack. Like, one of the really common examples given is you take someone and you get them prepared to be executed, and you blindfold them and you walk them out, and you have take the blindfold off, and you have all of these guys with rifles pointing at them, so they think they're going to be executed, and the guy's like, ready, aim, and they're like, nope, and then they walk the prisoner back to his prison cell, and they do this enough, and the prisoner eventually breaks. There's a reason why they do this, because they're like, just shoot me, just make this end. The waiting is even worse than this whole sort of dance of two steps forward, one step back. This is very much like MK Ultra, how this is done. The handler, the person who provides the torture, is also the person who then provides all of the reassurance. And there's, it works on the psyche, because what you want to do is you want to have a split. But really within the MK Ultras is once you get someone to the place where they split, that's when you begin to really give okay, this is the solution. Let me give you the reassurance, and this is what we're going to go, and I'm going to build you up in a certain way. This is how you work and do the mind control. And this is what's happening. So we have seen that there is there has been at least in terms of effectiveness, a very well executed plan to make everyone go insane. And arguably, we've all been insane for a long time, but this is this has really been doing it. And just as, you're getting to that final point, then the solution is going to be rolled out. And the solution is going to be rolled out, and the solution is going to take away the pain, but it's not really. It's just going to alleviate the real terror, the real fear, because none of the other measures which have been introduced onto society are going to go away. At least that's what they're saying in the papers. And that's what, all of the people who are telling, all the people who are trying to create the stories which go into people's minds so that that can then become a reality. They're saying like, yeah, it's not going away. This is your new normal. But this here, this coming medicine is going to be, it's going to be introduced is to the salve to the delusional psychosis, which, so many people are under the influence of. And that's just like one part of the story. And I guess the reason why I share this now, because again, this shouldn't be any surprise to anyone. This is what's going on. But it is to also recognize that, like, fighting against that is also participating in the story. And, that's the most important thing. The most important thing is the story. What is it that you believe? I talked about this a couple weeks ago, and I really haven't run it through yet, but, the timing hasn't been right, I suppose. And this has to do with, and I called it in the past, I called it third dimensional, fourth dimensional, and fifth dimensional consciousness. This is what we know is true. This is the one thing, I'm going to give you two things which we know for true. The first thing is the human experience is a mystery. It is fundamentally a mystery. The fundamental questions of where are we, you say we're on Earth. Okay, well, where's Earth? What's in space? Well, where's space? Well, I don't know. And, maybe there are lots of good stories. Space is the inside of a great being, which we're all part of. Maybe that's true. Space is something else. I don't know. But that's the whole point. It's not necessarily to get to the bottom of it. If there's one thing which we know is, like, the further you look into, like, to drill down deeper and deeper and deeper into figuring out the mysteries of life, you just get more and more mystery. So we don't know where we are. We don't know how we got here. We don't know what we're supposed to do. We embrace that. Part of this experience, whatever it is a mystery. So we don't understand necessarily how it works. But we understand that we're here, and we can understand different parts of it. So there's a truth. There's a truth that there's a mystery to our experience here. And we embrace going into the mystery, knowing that it is part of our experience. So now here's the second part. The second thing is what we do know is that our life on Earth is changing. It will never be what it was before, whether that's good or bad. It is not going to be the same. There is no way, like whether or not, the propaganda programs work, and whether, we don't know the nature of reality. We don't know who the people are who are behind this. We don't know the technologies they use, but we know that they're doing these stories, and we know that life will not be the same as it was, prior to March 15th, 2020. And because it's either going to, everyone's going to, like, wake up to the fact that this is going on, and they're not going to participate in it. And then we're going to have a different life, or it's going to work, and, life is going to be changed in a different way. So this is why stories are important. This is why stories are so important. And the most important thing right now, and this is the trickiest thing, I mentioned this earlier, it's the stories that we identify with. The stories that we don't even think they're a story. Those are the ones which are most needing of changing. Like, if you really want to go and change and have a different, we're going into the mystery. If you really not get sucked into a particular storyline, which is going to become a reality, you have to begin to go and question everything. So, all right. So let me go just pull this up here. Here's the story which they're not telling you, right? This story has since been removed. We'll let you go and pause it and read the stuff here. I don't want to talk about it. So I'm going to switch gears right now, and I want to talk about something which is a little bit more fun for me, and that is my birthday. My birthday's in 2 days. I'll be turning 49 years old. And, let's go and look at some presents. If you've been watching any of my other videos, I like to make bags. I've made 2 bags in the past in the past week or so. This is really nice. I came into some really nice leather. I've been looking for leather. I'm like, where's the leather going to come from? And it just fell in my lap. I kid you not. And so I made this bag right here. If you ever seen the movie Rain Man, there used to be a phrase. It may be considered inappropriate or rude nowadays, but the phrase was idiot savant. It's like someone who is like, kind of an idiot, but then some in a certain area is like a genius. In the movie Rain Man, the Dustin Hoffman character is, he did not have all of his mental capacity, but he was a genius with counting cards. And so I would say I'm kind of like Rain Man with making bags. I just know how to make these. But so this is a bag which I made, which I'm excited about. But it's the other bag, which I'm going to share with you guys right now because I'm super excited about this. But before that, let me go tell you this other story. This is another story because I want to go, and this is kind of fun. This is going to go back into like the nature of reality and the questions and like, what do you accept to be true or not? For those of you who remember digital cameras, before cameras were part of your phone, or at least were high quality cameras were part of your phone, people would carry around like, digital cameras. And this is probably, I don't know, like around like 2000 to like 2010, 2012. And there was a phenomenon known as orbs. And, there'd be these like floating orbs in all of these digital photographs. And, there was always talk that, these are spirits, these are ghosts, these are like plasma beings, I don't know. And then there'd be like an argument, oh, these are lens flares, this is like the light hitting something or other, I don't know. But they disappeared. What happened was, as the resolution increased, like as the technology got better and better within the cameras, like once there was a certain level, like orbs just disappeared. They just disappeared. And my thought was, I loved orbs, and I loved to look at them and question like what it was. And you would get some orbs in some strange places, and I don't know what they were, but I definitely thought it wasn't dust. Maybe some of it was, but nonetheless, that there was like this kind of like thin bandwidth of resolution, like 3 megapixels. I think that's that was what the terminology was known as then. But like once it got outside of that band, like the orbs were not picked up anymore. So that being said, in Halloween of this year, what was that? 6 weeks ago? Was that when Halloween was? 4 weeks ago. So I go trick-or-treating. with my brood. Let's see where we have it. We've got this right here. See this picture right here? That's me, and we're going trick-or-treating. And you see this green dot. We're like, oh, wow. I haven't seen an orb for a long time. And look right here on Halloween of all the time, when the veil is the thinnest, I see this orb. And if you do a little bit of research, this green orb is the person who took this picture, Jenny. She took it with an iPhone. If you do a little bit of research, you're going to go and see like this green orb is a relative consistent occurrence within iPhones, and it's a lens flare. And usually what happens is, if there's kind of like a dark forefront and a bright light in the background, you get this green lens flare shows up. And so those are the stories that, the very logical explanation, very well, like an actual description of what causes that. So there's that. But then, this is kind of interesting. So I'm going to show you this. And if you know anything about the iPhones, they got that like thing where you take a picture and like it's kind of like a movie for a couple seconds. So I'm going to show you this. And I want you to look at this orb. I want you to look right here. Look right here. Are you ready? Let's see it again. You see how it's moving? Notice how the camera's not moving, but the orb's moving. Like if the orb is caused, or the lens flare is caused from this light source, like, you know, it should move in relationship to like moving of the camera. And you can see the camera is not moving, but this is moving, or it's moving very much like that. Perhaps maybe this light's moving. I don't know. Here's another picture where you see the same thing happening. Look right here. You see how it's moving around like that. So I don't know what's going on. I definitely love the idea that we're capturing something like on Halloween, maybe a spirit that came around that's following us. And I like to show this. I like to show that video. I show it to people just because, you know, I like to people, if you haven't noticed this, I like to kind of like throw some monkey wrenches into your understanding of reality, just so that we can begin, not so much to be trickery to go and fool someone, but more so to get off of our set posture of what reality is. And so, you know, whether or not that's a lens flare or not, I don't know, but the move, you know, I usually begin by showing it with the still picture, and like everyone will come and say like, oh, well, it's a lens flare, and it's a lens flare. And I'm like, oh, well, if it's a lens flare, it shouldn't move, right? It should be stationary. Yeah. And then I show them the video, just like what I showed you. And then, like, you know, it usually gets someone to, like, you know, put them in a place where they're trying to have some sort of understanding of what it is. And I've gotten phone calls from people like a week later. I'm like, oh, I researched into this or that. But nonetheless, you know, I'm just kind of being like, you know, king of the gypsies. So that was happening, and I'm at Thanksgiving. I'm at Thanksgiving at Jenny's grandmother's house. And Jenny's mom's there. And it was kind of like a lull in conversation. And I wanted to bring up the story of the orb because I'm thinking in my mind, I'm sitting on the sofa trying to like mingle and be normal with everyone else. And I'm like, I'm going to go throw this story out just to like stir up some conversation. Let me go and create some conversation. And I'm laughing. And I'm again, like, I don't know what it is. I'm totally open to the fact that that's a spirit. I'm totally open to the fact that it's a lens flare. I don't know. But I'm thinking this, and I'm like kind of laughing to myself right before I tell the story. And I say, Debbie, have you ever seen an orb before? And she like looks up at me and she's like, what are you talking about? And the moment I say that, and I'm watching this because I'm looking at Debbie, she's like across from me, and right behind her is her sister walking, and her sister has this plate full of food. And I'm like, here, let me go and show you. Have you ever seen an orb? Literally, her plate full of food, the plate jumps out of her hand and spills all over the floor. All over the floor, makes this big mess. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, that story, this setup, like, which I have in my mind of what I'm going to go and tell and just kind of like, you know, do my little thing. It's all, you know, it goes away. And she didn't trip. It jumped out of her hand. And I'm like, well, obviously that orb does not want Debbie to see this picture. All right. So, stories. So we're going to go. This is a little bit of my birthday present to myself, but, you know, it's my birthday present to the people who I work with. A lot of the work I do with people is around the starboard, and if you've been watching some of the other videos, I've been building something else. I've been making something else. I've been making a map of the Susquehanna River. And so what we have inside of this bag is the finished product. So we're gonna do an opening, if you will. Okay. All right. So this is a bag. My friend Paul, hopefully you're watching, Paul. He sent me a whole bunch of stones, and he sent them in these kind of like really cool U.S. Mint bags. This is one of them. Let's see right here. And I took one of those bags and I created this bag. And I've got this, I put this felted tie, and so we'll go and untie this. First I'll go look right here, there's like this nice little handle to hold it by. I put on a Susquehanna Alchemy patch on the back. It's $1,000 worth of dimes, 10,000 dimes. I like that 10,000, you know. If you're familiar with the Tao Te Ching, you know, the first there was the one thing, and then the two things, and then the three things, and then the 10,000 things. So I like that. So let's open this up. Take this out, put this nice little tie right here, this leather. Open this up. There are a couple holes here, so I like embroidered the holes, gave it a nice little flavor. Let's bring this out. And interestingly enough, I started making this. I started making this on Halloween. I believe the trick-or-treating was on a Friday night or a Saturday night, and then it was the next day that I decided to start making this. And let's see if I can get this all in here. This here is the final product. Let me switch back to this. All right, this should be a better picture of the finished product. And so let me first go and show you right here. I'm going to tell you, there's a reason why I'm showing you this as it relates to this video about stories, but I'll get to that in a moment. You can see right here, this is a map of the Susquehanna River, the two branches, how it becomes the Chesapeake Bay. Here we have the Susquehanna River, the two branches, the Chesapeake Bay. This is where the large crater is, this black patch. Let me go and blow this up. You see this black patch right here. This is the anthracite. This is the anthracite deposit. This is where Scranton is. You could see right here, these are the Finger Lakes, and this represents where the Herkimer diamonds are. And you see all of these lines right here. You see these lines that I put on here. You got a line right there. You got a line right there. You got a line right there. So let me tell you what I did. So there's this book. I've made reference to this book before, The Gaia Matrix by Peter Champeau. Is that how I pronounce his name? Highly recommended if you're into like geomancy. And on page, I think this is 24. This is a copy of my own book right here. I took a picture of it. Is a it's a map of the northeastern United States, and he shows all the ley lines. And in this book, he goes and he identifies the lines and where they are, and what they represent, or what type of energy is associated with it. And it makes very clear sense to me. Like, this guy's onto something. And so what you can see right here, this rectangle, I drew that rectangle. That's basically the shape of what my map is. And these here are the ley lines that crosses it. We've got the City Ley, we've got the Southern Appalachian, we have the Empire Ley, we have the Washington Ley, and we have the Peacemaker Ley. So let's go back to this right here. And if you're looking closely, I'll make it a little bit bigger. If we're looking right here, and this is what we've got. We've got right here, this is the Southern Appalachian Ley, this is the City Ley, this is the Washington Ley. This is actually the 40th parallel, because what I'm doing is I'm overlapping all of my research with the Susquehanna Mystery with these ley lines. Here, the Finger Lakes. In the book, it talks about how right here at Seneca Falls is a major location of different ley lines and energy points, and so I highlighted that. And you can see I've got like these circles representing different areas of significance, both from my research and then also from the research of this book. And so the point of all of this, why did I go and I create all of this? Why did I put all of this energy into creating this map? And it has to do with stories. It has to do with stories. And so if you're familiar with the Susquehanna Mystery, and I highly recommend like looking into some of my older work. I think podcasts are probably when I've done the best job explaining it, some of the older podcasts. But what's so significant about the Susquehanna Mystery is we can see the primary, are, arguably the primary vehicles which are shaping our modern world: electricity, globalism, and computer technology. They all have had their first fruits on the oldest river, the Susquehanna, in key places. And so the premise behind it is, and it's all associated with like secret societies and magical practitioners, is that, these firsts, these particular manifestations of reality were placed upon this river in order to be successful, in order to manifest with the quote unquote support of Earth. I'm not saying that's that it works. I'm just saying this is what these guys have apparently done, and in hindsight, I would say it would work. I would say that what you're seeing is an ancient practice of what's called river goddess worship. And there's something significant about going to the oldest and flowing water and life and all this sort of stuff. So, we're in a time of a shift, of a great shift. In fact, I would say the last 400 years have prepared for this shift, which we're going through right now. This is when the sleight of hand is taking place, as we went and talked a little bit earlier in this video. And what I want to do is, Duke can play at that game. And so, the word's got kind of a negative connotation, but what we have here is it's a voodoo doll. It's sympathetic magic. It's sympathetic magic of the exact same tool which was used to create a certain level of reality. And I want to do the same thing. And whereas I've told people stories on the starboard, and when I do that, I tell the stories as the individual's relationship with the heavens, I retell a story. What I want to do is tell a new story, and I want to go and ground it onto this map. I do this with stones, and just the same sort of way, in a similar way of in which the starboard ceremonies had been done. But this is going to be different, and this is for a new time, and this is not necessarily about the heavens, but this is right here on Earth. And so I haven't completely figured out, it's how I work is I usually get an impression on what to do, and then, I make it, and then, I get an impression on how to use it. And so I'm still with the how to use it, but I want to share that with everyone because this is my way of working with stories and creating stories and not getting caught up in the story which is trying to be shoved down all of our throats. Because it only becomes a reality when you accept it. So, going to be wrapping up right now. Next time you see me, it'll be past my birthday. In lieu of flowers, anyone who's interested. Actually, these are great holiday gifts. I'd suggest getting a copy of The Rites of the 40th Parallel, which is explaining the energetic significance of this particular place on the map. Majority of people who purchase this probably do not even live in the immediate area. I don't know if they'd ever be able to go and see it in person. I hope they do, but this way they have a connection which is deeper than the unconscious one they have just by utilizing computers, because everyone is using computers and is participating in globalism and electricity. you're connected to its grounding, which is right here on the Susquehanna. But with this guidebook is other ways of connecting on a more human level. So if you're interested, order one of those on the website. And I'm still doing biomancy sessions. Those traditionally, I see a lot of them ordered for holiday gifts, Christmas gifts, whatever. This is the time when we give people we care about. Biomancy, what I do is I break down the story. I show you a story, how your story connects to the heavens, and we rewrite it. And eventually, hopefully in the next couple of weeks or so, I'm going to start offering these Susquehanna Mystery stories, which is on the map I just showed you. So keep an eye out for that. Have fun. Be kind. Let's... We're definitely in the thick of it right now, and seemingly, it's going to get intense. Don't commit anything to being a reality, but it's probably going to come. We'll move through it. We'll know what to do. I'll talk to you soon, my friends. Take good care.